Hey everybody, it's Professor Snart checking in here. So we are just, as I'm recording this on, Tuesday, October 29th, just wrapping up our last poetry unit where we have the Poetry Everywhere Padlet assignment that we've been looking at. And now we get into the last kind of section of our course looking at drama. We're going to start off by jumping right to the most famous of the most famous, so we'll take a look at that here. Okay, so a couple of different reading assignments here, just a few pages that introduce us to drama as a genre, like a type of writing in our textbook. Again, quite short to read. I am going to require you to read the famous To Be or Not to Be soliloquy or speech from Shakespeare's Hamlet, one of the most famous monologues or speeches from one of the most famous plays in probably the whole Western canon. So that's linked here. And then I'm strongly recommending that you watch a version of Hamlet because there's lots of different movie versions to choose from. Some are quite long and really detailed and follow the text quite closely. Some are much shorter and more designed to be like popular kind of Hollywood-ish movies. Some are somewhere in between. Some are full-on like movies. Others are like recordings of a play. So there's lots of different options there. But it's really hard to get the full sense of what he's talking about here beyond just getting used to like the Shakespearean language when you have no idea what's going on in the rest of the play. So we do, of course, have the entirety of Hamlet as the play in our textbook. You're more than welcome to read through that, but I'm not requiring it. It's long to read. And I think sometimes we sort of do a disservice to plays by just reading them. They're not really designed to be read as static things on the page. They're meant to be performed, so actors like portray emotion that help us to understand what's going on. They react to one another. So if you've ever read a play, whether it's Shakespeare or not, just like in a book, and not really felt like you understood what was happening or it was really confusing, it's not you. It's not supposed to be read that way. You're supposed to see it acted out, so you always know like who's saying what line or what that character is or what his relationship to other characters are and all that kind of stuff. So just reading Shakespeare on the page is really not the way it's designed to be. I think even Shakespeare himself would be like, you're just reading the play? That doesn't make any sense. But anyway, you're more than welcome to read, skim through maybe, read and watch if you find a version, but again, they don't exactly follow the text verbatim all the time. But anyway, a kind of mix of required and then strongly recommended versus recommended here. So our first assignment then is going to be to watch, not full movies of course, but different versions from different movies of that same To Be or Not to Be monologue. Some of them again quite famous, Sir Laurence Olivier's Hamlet version here. Definitely a product of its time, but you can take a look. Love It or Hate It, the Mel Gibson. I actually am not completely against this as a Hamlet. I think it's totally watchable, especially if you're just interested in like, okay, what's the story? Who are the characters? Can I watch this in 2 hours? Kind of a thing. And notably, it's set closer to like the medieval Denmark, where the play is technically set. This really surprising one when I found it. Kevin Kline, more famous as a comedic actor, like Fish Called Wanda and lots of other stuff, but having his go at Hamlet here, more of a filmed stage version as opposed to a movie. A really great BBC production, I think it is, to be the David Tennant, who was a Doctor Who kind of famous for that. Doing Hamlet, again, you can see, even from the stills without me pressing play, you can see the very different kind of, Hamlets that are being presented to us through not just the actor choices, but like how it's filmed and what else is going on. You'll be able to hear music or lack thereof. And then this really elaborate one, by Kenneth Branagh. It was a really long-running movie, like 3.5 to 4 hours, really true to the play, but also sort of like Shakespeare scholarship in terms of trying to bring forth some of the themes that are going on. Clearly, you can get the sense, even just looking at this, not set in medieval Denmark when the play is technically set, so it transposes that a little bit. This, I believe, is the royal court in Belgium, like 18th century kind of a deal. So again, sort of like strategic choices that they're making. And the truth be told, this is my absolute favorite To Be or Not to Be. you'll see really how it's staged here so differently than the other ones and presents us with a really different, like, Hamlet as a character. So that's kind of your job, right? Is to look at all these, and it's going to be more or less the same words, but it's really not the same because of the way the actor delivers the lines, the action or lack of action involved, the way camera is used, the way other film production elements are used, whether it's music or kind of like camera panning or cutscenes and stuff like that. Obviously, in something like a filmed play, we don't have a lot of that going on, so they don't have that at their disposal. So it's almost impossible not to watch and like choose a favorite, so you can totally do that. But do keep in mind that they're all products of their time period. This one is pretty grainy, so again, just a product of film technology or what they used at the time. So try not to let your choice of which you liked or which you didn't like be just a product of like what technology they had at the time period. Make it more about like the Hamlet that we're given in each of these different examples. Okay, so here's your first assignment. There's a couple that are going on in this unit here. So we've looked at a few of the famous monologues here. Your job is to think about sort of like not, again, it's almost impossible not to choose favorites, but not to just pick a favorite, but to really like analyze each of the characters, even though they're all ostensibly Hamlet, but as potentially like different kinds of people or actually different characters. You'll notice that, and this is where again it really helps to have a bigger sense of like what's going on in the play or the movie if you can find a movie version that you want to watch. So again, 2 hours of your time. It's actually a pretty interesting story. Just like strip away all the Shakespeare and all the et cetera, it's a pretty gripping story. But then you'll have a much better sense of like how Hamlet as a character fits into Hamlet as the play. So you'll notice that some are very internal and kind of like deep within themselves. Some are much more external and kind of performing the role of being mad, which is again one of the main themes of the play. So all of these things, are they moody? Are they really in control? Are they descending into madness or just pretending? These are all different choices that like productions can make, not just single actors, but whole productions can make when they stage a production of Hamlet. So as usual, create a new page. We're in Unit 9 here. And then discuss the performances that you were like most drawn to. Again, not just favorites, but particularly like what are the types of Hamlets that were delivered? I wish I could figure out a different way to say it, but I can't quite figure it out. Hopefully you get the idea, you get the sense of what we're doing here. And again, just like in any analysis, be as specific as possible. So quote directly, refer to timestamps in the videos, and all that kind of stuff. And that, again, what I'm saying here is it's really beneficial, even if you don't wade through the whole play, but at least watch a version of it so you have some sense of the bigger picture and what's going on here. Post your updated stuff to the discussion board here, and then make sure that you're replying to a couple of other classmates. Again, just because there's 2 replies doesn't mean you can't read and reply, in fact, to more than that. I think one of the benefits of the way that our course is set up is really like interacting as much as possible. So sometimes replying directly, but also even just like seeing what other people have had to say. Okay, here's your next assignment, so be sure that you're thinking about these in parallel or in tandem. So you've watched a bunch of versions, and now you're going to perform your own. Okay, we get it. We're not Shakespearean actors here. You're probably not going to have time or the wherewithal to like memorize all those lines. If you don't want to be on camera, or if you really can't, like, you don't want to be looking at a book the whole time, although Hamlet as a character is kind of a bookish guy, so that would make sense if he was reading a book, hint, hint. But if you don't want to be on the screen, then think of other ways that you could stage this performance of the lines, this famous soliloquy, so that you don't have to be the one who's on camera. But just like in the versions that we have above here, where it's not just a guy reading from a book, really think about this as a production, again, given the resources and time that we've got. Can you make choices about like costume or lighting or maybe background music that's going on? Other, like, quote-unquote set elements. Are we close up? Are we far away? If you want to get into it, can you like cut scenes together? And again, your choices here aren't just sort of like personal I don't know, whims that you're doing. Your choices here are really your analysis of the Hamlet character, and kind of by default the whole play, but really of the character. So you're not just choosing things like at random, basically. You want to really make them intentional choices. And again, be realistic about the time you can invest here in video production. Everyone's probably going to use like their cell phone. Write us a little paragraph kind of explaining what you were going for in your choices, but for the most part, like, let us watch and kind of understand your Hamlet. We're not Shakespearean actors, we're not film production students or professionals, but we're just going to do our best here. Have fun with it. It's another great way to kind of see or hear your classmates rather than just always reading the text part of it. And especially with the reply here, again, as usual, we're not going to get into like film reviews, right? Just be celebratory of people's creative choices, the effort that they put forward, what they were going for, even if it didn't totally work out, right? We're trying something here that's a little bit outside of the box or outside of the norm, but hopefully kind of fun, and hopefully at the end of the day, not just fun for the sake of being interesting or different, but allowing you like a different avenue into understanding that particular monologue, the to be or not to be speech, the character of Hamlet, and then of course, kind of by default, the whole play. One of the most famous things from the most famous character in the most famous play, like, ever. And it's really good. I've obviously myself read it like a bazillion times, watched a whole bunch of different versions, some of which I like, some of which I don't. But it's just like a really, really gripping plot, and then the basic theme of like, who are we? How does identity even work? Are we always just pretending to be somebody, or is there some authentic self in there? It's like, it's hard to believe this was written hundreds of years ago and not in the 21st century. It just feels so present, right, for today. So anyway, turning our attention to drama, away from poetry, a little interesting visual element to what we're doing now too. So hopefully you can have some fun with it. As always, if you have questions or concerns, just be in touch with me and I will talk with everybody soon.